Rebecca Morisuti here, virtual assistant, mentor, and VA business strategist. I cannot wait to take you behind the scenes today of my very own milestone setting process. This is the exact process that I used to be able to build my VA business, and not only to build my business clients that were like, okay, but build my business with fantastic clients that paid me thousands and thousands of dollars every single month. This exact strategy and planning had allowed me to balance my time as well, and also be able to achieve the freedom that most new virtual assistants never achieve. Taking our focus from goals to milestones is incredibly transformational. And today I'm going to tell you exactly, literally step by step, what I do to set my milestones. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about goals and milestones and the difference between both of them. Okay. So I want you to think back to all the different things you've ever tried to do to set goals. The goals you've thought about, the goals that maybe you vision boarded, the goals that you've put in your journal or your diary, the goals that you've just been thinking about. Okay. I want you to think about those goals. And now I want you to really think about how many of them you've actually achieved. And if you're anything like me, okay, you're anything like me, for a very, very, very large part of my life, I would constantly, sometimes honestly, I wouldn't even set goals, but the years that I did set goals, I constantly would forget about them by mid-February, right? And this is something that is constant. This happens to everyone. But there are people who achieve a lot throughout their year. Right? There are those special people. You may not even know any. I know for me, I didn't have anyone in my life that like would set goals and actually truly achieve them. I didn't really even have people that would share a lot of their goals with me. So I had this weird feeling like, okay, I am just the person who can't achieve their goals, right? Because I didn't understand that like no one else around me also wasn't hitting their goals. They just weren't telling anybody about it, right? So I felt for a very long time like, oh my God, I'm setting all these goals and nothing is coming of it, right? Like nothing is happening for me. I have the intention, I know what I want, but for some reason, like I can't get there. I just can't get there, right? When we start like working out, for example, we're like, okay, in January, we're going to work out like 5 days a week and we're going to go to the gym. We're going to eat healthy. And then eventually we are sitting at McDonald's staring at, 6-pack of chicken nuggets. Just me? I don't know, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. So often in our business as well, do we set goals? They may be financial goals. They may be goals for finding clients. They may be goals for just starting the business, right? And we have the best intentions. We have the best intentions at the beginning of the year, but then things start going awry. Okay, things start going off track. Maybe we go on vacation. Maybe we're sick. Maybe we have, another priority that comes up and we have to put whatever we were working on before on pause. Maybe we don't even actually ever get past that first week in January. Right here. I am that person. Okay, I am that person. And to be honest, I'm still that person with some things. Truly, I am. Okay. But as I started building my VA business, I started realizing that when it comes to building a business and it comes to really taking charge of yourself, right? And having that next level accountability that you need to have to yourself, like you are showing up for your business. Nobody is there being like, Rebecca, you got to get up and do your work today. Rebecca, you got to get up and find another client today. Once you start really understanding how you and you alone need to take that accountability to build your business, you also start realizing that you need to take accountability to hit goals that you want, the goals that you want. You realize that like no one and nothing is going to help you achieve the things that you want to achieve in this life but you. But then you kind of get stuck because you're like, well, everything I've done up until this point hasn't worked. It has not worked for me. So how can I actually do this? And this is exactly what happened to me a few years ago. Okay. One of my clients had asked me to help him with annual planning. And in that process, he asked me to put together a milestones-based plan. Now, I had never put together a milestones-based plan to hit a goal. I had done it for some projects and things, but not for like a large, like overarching, seemingly massive goal. I had never done that. And I had never heard about anybody, doing like milestone setting. Like online, all I was hearing about was like setting your goals and your intentions and all these things, right? Like we all do. So what did I do? I was a great VA and I went online and I searched up milestones-based annual planning. And I searched and really nothing was coming up that was super helpful. It was all kind of just the same goal setting. And then I came across this amazing book called The 12-Week Year. The 12-Week Year is, I think it's probably under like a productivity umbrella in terms of like book categorization. But the 12-Week Year was a book. Like every once in a while you read a book that just completely changes your perspective. This was a book that did that for me. So I actually listened to it on audiobook and I put together a plan for my client at the time for his business that was based on the strategies that were in this book called The 12-Week Year. And when I did that, I was nervous because I had no idea if that's what he was expecting or what he was expecting. With clients, sometimes you're like, okay, they tell me that they have no idea, but sometimes they actually do know what they want in the back of their mind. So I wasn't sure. I sent it over to him and he was like, oh my God, Rebecca, this is literally something I've needed for the last like 7 years of my business. No one has ever created something for me that is so easy to implement and also so easy to adjust as I go along. He implemented that plan and he ended up becoming highly successful. So successful, in fact, that I stopped working with him because he had like a team of like 40 people. Like it just started out me and him, and he built his business to this huge team of people that worked all over the world. Okay. So I did that. That was great. But still at that point, I didn't really realize that I could harness that power that I used for him and his business actually in my life, right? Business is one part of my life, but there are many other parts of my life as well, right? I have goals and dreams and things that I want to achieve that are outside of what I'm even currently doing now in my business. If you know me, one of my goals that I always talk about, and I don't even want to call it a goal anymore, something I will be doing very soon is building an off-grid spa. Okay, that is like something that I have been wanting to do. Like I have the vision, I have the boards, and I know what like tiles I'm using. Like it's happening. Okay. And what I realized is that I could use this plan that I created for my client. I could actually use that to optimize my entire life. Now, I am not a super organized person. I am not a person that color codes things or is like, I'm not type A. I'm not a type A person. Okay. I'm a loosey-goosey, go with the flow person. So I'm a little bit hesitant to use this strategy. But something that's amazing about this strategy in setting milestones and then ultimately in setting tactics, which I'll talk about in just a second, is that there is room for adjustment. Okay. And there's also space and a strategy to use to track things as well, which I found was really, really helpful. So let's go into what this actually means. Okay. What does this mean for you and how can you use this? How can you take my strategy and apply it to your business? And really, what is my strategy? Okay. So first, let's break down goals, milestones, and tactics. So goals are this high level, overarching giant thing that we're trying to achieve. Okay. That is like the ultimate big thing. So let's say, for example, in your VA business, it's probably like, I want to make $100K a year, working with 4 clients. Maybe it's not even that specific. Maybe it's like, I just want to run a freedom-based business. I just want to have the freedom to be able to pick my kid up at 3 p.m. from the bus stop, or I just want to have the freedom to be able to go to Pilates at 2 p.m. I want to have the freedom to be able to travel and work wherever I want. Okay. Everybody has a different reason of why they're starting their VA business. But that's really what we start with, right? Is that goal. Then we go down one level from the goal. Okay. And that's where milestones come in. And these are crucial. Okay. These are like, you can almost think of them as like projects that have hard completion dates. And the series of these small projects actually allows us to hit that giant goal. right? So like, let's say, for example, if we're using, the VA example, which obviously is the most relevant to you, right? Our overarching goal is to be able to pick our kid up at 3 p.m. Our overarching goal is to be able to take vacation. Okay, what is the first thing that we need to do? Okay, the first thing I need to do is I need to understand how much money I need to make to be able to quit my 9-to-5 job. Okay? That's the first thing I need to do. That's my first milestone. My first milestone is to understand how much money I need to make to be able to quit my 9-to-5 job. Because from there, then the next milestone would be to build your business and get your first client, but you need to know how much you need to charge that first client, right? You can't just go into it all willy-nilly, like, I'll charge you $20, and then later on down the road be like, that was a huge mistake, right? We need to break these things out in milestones. But a lot of people don't do this, and a lot of people do what I just said, go in all willy-nilly and end up regretting it. Right? And end up failing and going back to their 9-to-5 job and not being successful. But that's not what we want. We want to actually achieve this. So we want to take that big giant goal and we want to break it down into manageable milestones, manageable points, like checkpoints that we need to hit. Now, milestones are still kind of more of like an umbrella, right? Because under that milestone, there are tactics. So tactics you can think of as like the to-do list. So you can think of the milestone as like the project title and the definition, the objective and all of that. And then you can think of the things underneath it as the checklist of things to do. So if the very first milestone that we have in building our VA business is to understand how much we need to make to replace our 9-to-5 income, then probably one of our first tactics in doing that is to download all of our bank statements. Okay, that's one tactic there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to upload all those bank statements into a spreadsheet so we can consolidate all of them. Okay, great. Okay, the third thing we need to do is, and it goes on from there, right? These are little tidbits, okay? The checklist that leads up to milestone that ultimately leads up to the goal. Now, depending on how many milestones we have and how many goals we have, you may have a lot of tactics, you may have a lot of milestones, right? It also kind of depends on the size of the thing that you're trying to achieve. When we're building a business, there will be a lot of milestones. I think that that's something that not a lot of people understand. They think, I'm going to start a business and then I'm going to get clients and then I'm going to make money and then I'm going to do the thing. No. No, girl, no. There are a lot of different things that go into that. There are a lot of different things that go into even just landing your first client, right? So you being able to sit down and actually make the time to think through this, to really think through it, think about all those steps, all those milestones, and the things that you need to do to make those milestones happen, right? Those tactics. You are then going to be able to actually start taking action towards hitting that goal by going through your tactics and checking them off, hitting your milestone, going to the next one, going through those tactics, checking them off, going to the next one. Okay? Now, the other thing that's really great about doing it this way is that you have more flexibility. Okay? You have more flexibility to move things around because you see things on such a granular level. Right? You see things on such a granular level. So what I mean by this is, like, let's say somebody starts their VA business and they have their goal is to start their VA business, right? To go to Pilates at 2 p.m. That's their goal. And they go and they, try to find a client. And they're doing all these things, right? They're all over the place. Maybe they go on LinkedIn. Maybe they go on Facebook. Maybe they're also working on their logo at the same time. Maybe they're like building their website and they're like just all over the place, right? It's really hard to gauge like your progress there. Are you making progress? Like, who knows? This way, when you actually set up milestones and tactics, you are actually able to gauge your progress. And what gauging your progress allows you to do is actually build more confidence that you're actually on the way to hitting that thing that you want to achieve. Okay? It's like going to the gym, saying I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lose 20 pounds, but then never weighing myself. Right? Never weighing I don't know. I could look in the mirror. Maybe I look a little bit, thinner, or maybe I have some more muscle, but I don't know. Right? So until you actually incorporate tactics in so you can track your progress, you're not even going to know what progress you're even making. Any hard progress at all. And you're not going to know what you need to adjust in order to hit that next milestone. Okay? So Here's how I plan my own milestones. Here's what I do in my business. I do this every single year. I actually do this 4 times a year. I do not plan generally. I have some ideas of what I want for the entire year, but generally speaking, what I do is I actually break everything out into quarterly, high level goals and then break things down for milestones from there. Because for me, that's how I've actually seen the most success and the way that I've seen the most progress in my business is by breaking things down like that. Okay. And like I said, I use a book called The 12-Week Year. The entire principle of the 12-week year is that you can get as much accomplished in 12 weeks as you can in an entire year. Now, I have not been able to achieve that yet. I could not, I would be lying to you if I told you that I've achieved a year's worth of stuff within 3 months, but I'm working towards that. I know that it is achievable. I also know that the reason I haven't achieved that is solely my fault. It's totally my fault. Okay. So how do I do it? How do I do this? This is exactly how I set my own milestones for my business. Okay. So the very first thing that I do is I like to kind of like dream. I'm a dreamer. I'm Pisces. Okay. If you know, you know. All right. I'm a dreamer. I like to dream. I like to think about all the things I want to do in my life. Okay? All the things I want to do, all the things I want to accomplish, all the gifts I want to give to the people that I love, all the experiences I want to take my husband on, all the things I want to do with my nieces and my family and my friends, and like, I want to, just all the things, right? I go crazy. I am a dreamer. So I dream. I let myself do it and I love doing it. I dream and then I start to look at, okay, what do I want for the next year? Knowing that these are my dreams, what can I do this year that's going to help me get closer to those things? Okay. Then what I do is I kind of set some high level goals. Okay. And then I break those goals down into milestones. Okay. So the very first thing that I do, first I dream and then I do the goals, the high level goals. And these are kind of like written in pencil at this point. Okay. Nothing set in stone. Then what I do is I do a full review of the past year. Okay. So I review everything. I review all the projects I've done. I review the clients that I'm working with. I review literally everything. If there was a project that did go very well, like why did it not go well? If there was something I really loved doing, but I didn't have a lot of time to do, why did that happen? Like I really, really, really do a deep dive review. And this probably takes me an entire day. Like I would say 7 hours, 8 hours. Okay. So again, it takes time to do this. This is not like some fast thing, like whip it up. No, you're going to get as much out of this as you put into it. So I like to put a few days aside. And sometimes I actually even like to go somewhere by myself, like a solo trip, or maybe I'll even go to the spa and work, which I know seems weird, but for me, I actually get a lot of work done there. Okay. Obviously not while I'm being massaged or anything like that. So I do a full review of the past year. I see all the milestones that I've accomplished as well, right? I see all the things that I've accomplished. Wow, Rebecca, like that was amazing. You increased your rate. You landed that client. You let that client go. Amazing. Okay. And then I take a look at some of the things that I thought I would do last year, but that I didn't do. And I try to understand why I didn't do them. Okay. If there are milestones that I have not accomplished yet, what I do is I actually assess if I actually want to hit these goals. Because if I haven't achieved them yet, there's a reason why. Okay, there's a reason why. Like I said, if I haven't made a dent in it, like I need to figure out why that is. And if I do want to keep the goal, I realized why, okay, yes, I know why I didn't do it, but I still want to keep it. Then I just move that back to the things that I want to do this year. Okay. Now, I will say, if you start doing this and you start noticing like time and time again, you're still not going after the thing that you want, there's likely a reason why. And I personally, for me, I like to really do some like introspective work on figuring out why it is that I haven't actually done the thing that I said I was going to do. Sometimes it's based on fear. Sometimes it's based on financial resources, whatever it is, right? I figure out why that is. And I also try to figure out if there's a way I can get around it. Okay. Then I take time to think about where I want to be at the end of this year, right? At the end of like 2024. So I've reviewed 2023 and now I'm taking a look at where I want to be at by the end of 2024. Okay. And this isn't just from like a milestones perspective. This is also from just a high level human being perspective. I ask myself, how do I want to feel? How do I want my business to look at the end of this year, right? How much do I want to be working in my business versus working with clients versus not working at all? Do I want to take any long-term vacations? What do I want? What income do I want to end this year with? Those are all questions I ask myself when I'm developing my milestones. So after I really understand the current status of my business, that's when I will pick three big things to work on for that quarter. Okay. I break them down into the milestones. Okay. Likely, sometimes it's like one milestone a month. Okay. Break it down to the milestones. And then I go and I make the tactics for those milestones. And this whole process, like I said, just the reflection part takes me a day. I would say it takes me 2 more days in addition to actually plan the year or plan the quarter, depending on what I'm doing. So I played around with both, but I find doing the quarterly, it's more doable for me because I do like to adjust things, Okay. So I also then, once I have everything laid out, then I actually start to balance things, right? If I see that month 1 is like really heavy with like tactics, then I might start to space it out because I want to set myself up for success. I know that I'm probably not going to stick to every single deadline that I'm setting. And I want to make sure that there is buffer room there. Okay. So, okay. Once I assign my milestones, I'm just looking, I have a little list here because I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So once all my milestones are in and my tactics are developed for those, then what I do is I actually create a little chart in my notebook. Okay. I have a little chart, and what that chart does is it actually allows me to track my progress of the specific things that I'm focusing on. So I have my tactics. My tactics, remember, are like my to-do list. I will put them in my notebook, and I will put like Monday, Tuesday, I put an M and then a T and then a W and then a T and then an F, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I write my tactic. And then each day I look there and I'm like, oh, have I done that today? Have I worked on that today? Have I put any energy today towards that whatsoever? If I have, then it gets a check mark. If I haven't, it gets an X. Okay. So it's almost like you can kind of think of it like we're trying to build a routine or a habit. Okay. Now, ideally, your goal is to make a little bit of progress on the tactics that you set every single day. Okay, that is the ideal situation. Every day you've done something. Okay, something. That's how you can get to where you want to get to as fast as you possibly can if you're able to dedicate time to it every day if you're making progress. Now, if you start noticing, ooh, okay, for like 2 weeks now, I've only dedicated like 1 day or 2 days to these tactics that I'm supposed to be accomplishing. You now have a chart. You can look at that and be like, ooh, there's a lot of X's on this paper. I need to like get it together. And next week I need to dedicate a lot of time to hitting this. Otherwise I know that I'm not going to hit this, right? You need to hit anything in this world, you need to put the time and the dedication, the focus into it to do that. Okay. Now, remember, this planning session is just your first step. This is something that needs to be revisited. I do it daily. Like I said, I have the checklist of the tactics. I see the milestone every day. I read it. Okay. It's really important to make sure that it's there. You need to make sure you put it in a place where you know that you're going to be able to access it every single day. Okay. It's amazing how far we can go down the wrong path when we're not staying connected to our tactics and our milestones. That's what happens when you set goals, right? Because you don't even know the path. At least now you have a path. At least now you've developed the path and now you just need to follow it. Okay. So create your plan and then stick to it. You need to stick to it. It's key. Review it daily, build it into your routine, hold yourself accountable. Okay. You deserve this. You deserve this. And you need to make sure that you respect yourself enough to stick to it. Okay. So that is a review of my milestones planning. I hope that was super helpful. Send me a DM. Let me know if you have any questions at all. I'd love to hear if you've implemented this in your business. You can also reply right to the email you got this video in and send me your feedback as well. Okay. If you have any questions as you go through your milestone plan, let me know and I will catch you next week. Bye everybody.